As the very first rays of sunlight pierce through the morning mist in Potsdam, the world seems to hold its breath. A gentle, sloping hill emerges from the fog. But this is not a hill guarded by massive stone walls or formidable military fortifications. Instead, we see lush, green vineyard terraces, stacked one upon the other like the notes on a giant musical staff, waiting for a melody to be played. Perched at the very top of this hill, a building of brilliant yellow lies in silence, welcoming the new day. This is Sanssouci. In French, Sanssouci translates to without care or carefree. This was never intended to be a place to rule an empire. It was not a place to shout orders to marching armies. This is a place to breathe. It was a sanctuary designed to escape the suffocating rituals and stiff formalities of the royal court in Berlin. Listen closely. Can you hear it? The rustling of the grape leaves in the gentle breeze, the soothing sound of water trickling from the great fountain at the bottom of the hill. It is an atmosphere so quiet, so still, that you can almost hear the beating of your own heart. Here, nature and architecture do not fight for dominance. They are blended together like two soulmates in a perfect embrace. The man who created this paradise was Frederick the Great, affectionately known as Old Fritz. The world remembers him as a military genius, the warrior king who put Prussia on the map of European power through fire and steel. But Sanssouci tells a very different story. This palace has only one story. It stretches out low along the ground, hugging the earth. The king did not want to climb grand staircases. He wanted to step directly from his bedroom door into his beloved garden. The architectural style here is known as Frederican Rococo. It is playful, light-hearted, and filled with an abundance of natural light. Look up at the caryatids, the statues of the gods of wine supporting the roof. They do not strain under the weight. They do not look burdened. Instead, they seem to be dancing, celebrating the very joy of being alive. Inside the circular library, thousands of leather-bound books line the cedarwood shelves, their scent filling the air. This was Frederick's sanctuary. This was his holy ground. Here he would lock himself away for hours to read, to write poetry, and to forget the heavy burden of the crown he wore. Power here is not demonstrated through massive size, but through refinement, intellect, and wit. When night falls and the candles in the concert room are finally lit, that is when Sanssouci truly comes alive. Frederick was not just a king, he was a talented musician, a flutist with a sensitive soul. Imagine the sound of his silver flute echoing through the room, weaving through the crystal chandeliers, harmonizing with the gentle notes of the harpsichord. His audience was not made up of generals or soldiers. They were the greatest thinkers and artists of the age, including Voltaire, the famous French philosopher. They would sit around the circular table in the marble hall. Under the magnificent domed ceiling, debates about freedom, religion, and the meaning of life would rage passionately throughout the night. Here, there was no rank. There was only the equality of the intellect. They dined together, drank wine harvested from the vineyard just outside the window, and dreamed of a world ruled by the light of reason. Sanssouci was often called a monastery of men. Women, even the queen herself, were rarely permitted to set foot here. It was the king's absolute private world. But behind the melodious tunes of the flute and the brilliant intellectual feasts, there lay a deep, unfillable loneliness. Frederick the Great was a man of profound contradictions. He loved peace and philosophy, yet he was forced to spend his life in war. He craved deep friendship, yet he was constantly suspicious of the human heart. Even Voltaire, his soulmate of the mind, eventually left him after bitter arguments. In the final years of his life, Sanssouci became quieter than ever before. The old king would sit alone in his worn velvet armchair. The glorious military victories of the past were now just fading memories. All that remained were him and his faithful Italian greyhounds. He called them the only friends who never betray. The king's eyes would gaze out at the garden in autumn, watching the golden leaves fall one by one. The feeling of human mortality, the terrible price one pays for greatness, weighed heavily on his thin, frail shoulders. The higher the power, the greater the solitude. And Sanssouci was the only friend that truly understood that pain. Today, Sanssouci still stands there, radiant in yellow on the hill of Potsdam. Millions of visitors come here every year to admire its beauty. But the greatest legacy Frederick left behind is not this building. It is a simple, humble grave located right on the upper terrace, next to the vineyard. His final wish was, "Quand je serai là, je serai sans souci." When I am there, I shall be without care. He wanted to be buried right here, next to his 11 beloved dogs. There is no grand stone monument, no majestic mausoleum. There is only a small stone slab engraved with the name Frederick the Great. Visitors often place potatoes on his grave, a tribute to the crop he forced his people to plant, saving the nation from starvation. It is a tribute that is simple, yet deeply sincere. Sanssouci is proof of a timeless truth. No matter if you are the greatest king in history, the final thing you seek is simply peace of mind. A place to leave all worries behind, to return to Mother Earth and your loyal friends. Thank you for walking with me through this garden of philosophy and emotion. I hope you have found a little Sanssouci, a little freedom from care for yourself in these past few minutes. If you have fallen in love with this journey, please subscribe to our channel so we can continue to discover eternal beauties in the next episode. Goodbye, and see you again.